before I start. Okay. So third part of our presentation is going to be about self-care and wellness. Okay. So we talked about burnout, we talked about emotional intelligence, now self-care and wellness. This is a little bit lengthy, so hopefully we'll finish by 2. Okay. How many of you know about the revised Declaration of Geneva, the modern day physician's pledge? How many of you know it? If you haven't, please raise your right hand, because we're all going to take this oath. We have to. It's not. So raise your right hand and then repeat after me. I will attend to my own health, well-being, and abilities in order to provide care of the highest standard. Now that you've taken the oath, you are held to that oath that you will take care of yourself so you can take care of others. 2017 is when this oath came out. It took us over 2,000 years to figure out, if we're not in good health, we probably are not being our best to take care of others. And now it's mandatory, but just because we said it, okay, great. How do we do it? What does it mean even to take care of myself? And as they say, the devil is in the details. And what does it exactly mean? So self-care is giving the world the best of you instead of what's left of you. And you probably have heard of wellness, and people need to be well, and you doctors need to be well, and you need to take care of yourself, so and so on and so forth, and up to the point where it really is nauseating sometimes. Like, come on, not another lecture about wellness and mindfulness and meditation and yoga. Let's not go there. So we're almost aversive to it. The approach here is, again, let's see how I can make this interesting, if you will. So there's the definition and the approach of wellness, and then there's what's the best practice? How do we practice it in a way that keeps making sense, and how do we tie it to our intrinsic motivation? So where do we need self-care and wellness? Pick any part of your life, any part, no matter what you're doing. Self-care and wellness will take you from acting at a certain level like here to acting at a level right here. And the future depends on what we do in the present. So don't think for a second that I've got time for that later on. But that's why I say the time to act is now. And so with that in the background, what is the definition? When we say self-care and wellness, what does that mean? So self-care is the practice of taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being and happiness, in particular during periods of stress. Active role. Wellness is the state of being in good health, especially as an actively pursued goal. Okay? When you talk to your patients and you tell them, look, you've got to do this, patients don't, and then you sit there and say, all right, my patient wants to do all of this, and then they expect their health to become magically better. They don't put the effort to do that. Well, it's the same, turn that lens from them onto you. And when we say active, do we really have to do this every single day? The answer is yes, we do. You have to remember, just as emotional honesty, the relationship with yourself sets the tone for every other relationship you have. And if you are not comfortable within your own body, and when we talk about wellness, there are several dimensions to wellness. It's not like I'm absent of disease or I go to the gym. It's more than that. So let's go into it at an intimate level, if you will, a level that connects with you. We do know from literature that without self-care and wellness, you will have burnout. You will have worsening physician morbidity and mortality. You will have patient morbidity and mortality. You have poor leadership, and then you have a failure of the healthcare industry. And these are big headlines, but they are the culmination of research that has shown them to be true. So where do we start? Okay, so now I know that I have to actively take care of myself. Where do we start? When you talk to your patients, and I started to give this example, when you tell your patients, look, if you want to have a better, I like this, I don't have that with me. One of the patients was complaining to the doctors, like, doctor, do I really have to exercise an hour a day? And the doctor says, again, well, you have the choice of exercising 1 hour a day or being dead 24 hours a day. When you talk to your patients and you tell them, look, you've got to lose weight, you got to take your medicines, you got to do this, and you've got to do that. And then they come back and they're complaining, I'm getting worse. Really? I don't know why you're getting worse. Are you taking your medicine? No. Did you cut off the fat from your, no. Did you cut off the, no. Are you exercising? No. Then why are you surprised you're getting worse? Now let me ask you the same question. If you're going to start to actively take your life into your own hands and care for yourself, how do you expect to do that if you continue doing what you're doing? So Hippocrates said it best, right? He says, before you heal someone, ask him if he's willing to give up the things that made him sick. Yeah. So if you're going to embark on this journey of self-care and wellness, you have to ask yourself, am I willing to do what it takes? Am I going to be discomforted? Am I going to be able to find what I need? And then often we try to do all these tests, which are necessary. But the truth is, if you listen to your patient, he is telling you the diagnosis. This is one of the things that I loved during our training in internal medicine. Mind you, I trained in internal medicine at the end of the last century. Most of my training came with listening to the patient. In this case, who's the patient? You are. So the question is, going back to emotional intelligence, are you able to listen to what your body tells you? Because your body talks to you all the time. And are you able and willing to listen? On the illness and wellness continuum, there's not, I'm completely well or I'm completely ill. We define it as health is not the mere absence of illness, it is a continual striving to live a full life, meaningful life, continuous striving. It is an active role. The continuum is based on the concept of self-actualization, those three basic needs that we talked about. Wellness explores all aspects of well-being, not just one. Wellness is the self-actualization and full integration of mind, body, spirit, and environment. We have arrived at the wellness self-care state. It is an integration. It is self-actualization. Why is it so difficult, especially in the medical field? People say, oh, doctors make the lousiest patients or nurses make the lousiest patients. Why? Current evidence indicates that the medical student, resident, and fellow receive inadequate self-care training. Well, you tell us it's good, but then you do everything you can to block us from being well, and you give us this schedule, you give us all of these requirements, you burn us out, but then you expect us to be well. And then you tell us to go be well, but you don't tell us how. And no, a lecture on mindfulness, self-care, all of these things is not going to cut it. It's nice in theory, but how do we apply it? And when you want us to apply it, what are some of the obstacles to applying it? Well, the first thing is denial. Most people in the medical field absolutely believe they have nothing wrong with them. Nothing. You may get maybe a little bit today, but absolutely there's nothing. The traditional culture myth that physicians are immune to illness remains to this day. Never sneezed in front of a patient, so sorry, I think I'm coming down with a cold, and the patient says, how can you be sick? You're a doctor. What does that have to do with it? I'm a human. Physicians worry about their reputation in their community and among their peers. What is one word that comes to mind if I told you it's okay if you tell somebody you're sick? What's the one word that comes to your mind? Give me a word that the other person might think of you if you say, I think I'm sick.
And I'm weak.
Weak.
Weak. And then what's the emotion that generates inside of you? I'm ashamed to say that I'm sick. I don't think I have the courage. No, I'm fine. Your right arm is falling off your body. But I'm fine. I'm good. I have the left one. We won't say. And then if we have some problem, who do we turn to? We try to fix ourselves. There's shame and fear, right? And then responsibilities and time constraints. Again, have you seen my schedule? It is not in our DNA, training or thought process. If we go in, and we talked about this, the strongest primal sympathy that ever exists, probably. It's not in our DNA. All we want to do is help and help and help. And we're committing suicide that we want to help and help and help. And that's why I told you it's amazing. It's good, but it can be bad. And we have to learn how to balance that. I want to honor your primal sympathy, but I need you to honor yourself. All right. If you don't know the secrets to successful wellness, buckle up. I'm about to share them with you. This is groundbreaking things here. So let's start. At the heart of wellness, self-love, self-compassion, self-care. Self, love, compassion, care. Emotional words. Okay, what is self-love? Having a high regard for your own happiness and well-being. Think about that for a second. It's not being selfish. It's actually having a regard for your own happiness. It's important for you to feel happy and well. It is not sacrificing your well-being and taking care of your own needs. I don't know if you've heard this before. Who's flown on a plane? You know this example? Who's flown on a plane before? They tell you when the pressure drops, masks will fall, oxygen masks will fall. And if you're traveling with a child, who do you put the mask on first? Yourself. Why? Because if you pass out, the child dies. Same thing. And it's not settling for less than you deserve. You do deserve to be well. You've worked for it. What is self-compassion? So let's run through this exercise. Supposing you missed a diagnosis, you missed a PE and the patient dies, nearly dies. I don't want to make it that dramatic. How do you feel about that? You run the diagnosis, you missed a PE, the patient nearly dies. And then somebody says, hey, you remember that patient who was short of breath? That's kind of like the worst sinking feeling, right? Hey, remember that patient with the shortness of breath? Yeah, what happened? Did they die? No, they had a massive PE. I think you missed it. What would you tell yourself if that happens? Would you blame yourself? Would you berate yourself? Would you call yourself names? Like, how could you be so stupid, careless, ignorant? I can't believe you didn't even think about that. It's duh. Imposter syndrome. Do you think you really are a doctor? I mean, if something like this, are you really cut out for this? You nearly killed the person by missing something so obvious. That's probably what you would be telling yourself. Now, you're sitting next to your best friend and your best friend gets that phone call. You turn to your best friend and you tell them what? It's okay. We all make mistakes. Don't judge yourself based on one thing. That's how we learn. We're not perfect, and you learn from it. And you know what? Someday down the line, you're going to save another life because of this. It's okay. You want to take away their pain. Self-compassion is talking to yourself like you would be talking to your best friend. That simple. So there's self-kindness, there's common humanity, and there's mindfulness. What is mindfulness? Having an open, curious, non-judging attitude, not over-identifying with negative stories about the self. Self-kindness, treating yourself kindly rather than harshly, extending the same care and support to yourself that you would to a good friend or loved one. And common humanity, allowing yourself to be human, to make mistakes and learn from them, knowing that as humans we are not perfect, nor should we be expected to act flawlessly. Very difficult. One of the most difficult things for us to do to ourselves, but we jump at the opportunity to do it to our best friends. And then self-care. Mastery of wellness is mastery of self-care. What does that mean? It can be defined, as I said, as a way of living that incorporates behaviors and that enable one to maintain personal health and balance. Again, it's active, right? Replenish energy and motivation and grow as a person. Among healthcare professionals, practicing self-care is extremely hard and associated with feelings of selfishness and guilt. I'll take it beyond that. Fathers and mothers, taking care of yourself, you'll feel guilty. I'm taking it away from my children, or I'm taking it away from my spouse, or having a significant other. If I turn that lens on me for 1 second, sometimes it's a second. There are 4 steps to successful wellness. 1, decide, develop the mindset. I will take care of myself. That's my mindset. Take control from what life robs you. take it. I'll show you what I mean. Take time. The most eye-rolling phrase is take time. Take time from what prevents you to do so and creating a habit. What do I mean? How many of you have said or heard that you don't have enough time? What if I told you the problem isn't time? We have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if I told you that you will need to do some of these things that we're talking about, no more than 20 to 30 minutes a day, and you're done. Remember those 15 minutes of quiet time, and then 20 to 30 minutes is like, I don't have time. And I'll tell you what. The way we choose to spend our time is an indicator of our priorities. So it's not a problem of time. You tell me how you live your life, I'll tell you what your priorities are. The key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. Meaning, I'll give you an example. How many of you had a busted pipe last week? What happened when you had that busted pipe? What grabbed your attention? That busted pipe. Water flowing everywhere. Stop everything. I mean, drop everything and go shut off that pipe. That became your priority. You found time for that pipe. You can't prioritize your health the same way? Of course you can. You just don't do it. Not just you. I'm looking at Heather, but all of us. Sorry, you had a busted pipe, by the way. Did you fix it?
Yeah, we fixed it, but we also have like 4 or 5 in our sprinkler system that are just want to get it all like redone. But
I'm sorry, the sprinkler system can wait right now. So,
but the house at least is okay.
there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. Priorities. Wonderful. So you schedule your priorities. And if you say, if I'm gonna be the center of all of this, because I'm going to have to be the best for everybody, including myself. Let me start by putting in my schedule, my sacred time slots. And I'm going to honor my sacred time slots. And then I'll schedule everything else. Then you'll discover it's not the problem of time. And do you know the stages of change, right? Have you seen the Prochaska's model of stages of change, the pre-contemplation to contemplation, determination, action, relapse, maintenance? This is the stages of change model. At any one point, we go in and out of this cycle. So anytime we make a decision and act upon this decision, we go through that cycle. I think I'm going to probably buy a car next year, or maybe in a month or so, right? And then I go like, hey, let me do some research about that car. And then you put everything, you know what? I'm going to go buy that car. Then you take the action, and then so on and so forth. Then I think I'm going to start losing weight. I'm going to diet and start to lose weight. You know, I had short breath going up the stairs. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to start dieting. I'm going to cut off this, that. At a bad day at work, I just dove into my ice cream bucket. Oh well, I will restart again. That's stages of change. That's what we're going to go through all the time. So one of the things, if you decide on something and say, all right, you know what, I'm so convinced with this presentation, I want to change. I don't want to be part of the group that's sitting there saying, what if we don't change at all and something magical just happens, because it's not going to, right? Let me understand where I am ready. Moving forward, any decision you make, any goal you have, you're going to decide on it. When you decide on that goal, a good lens to see where you are with respect to the goal is the following. So this is a good test for you guys right now. You have a paper and a pen. And since the theme is self-care and wellness, pick out a goal for you. Take a minute and pick out a goal of self-care and wellness that you might want. Something you've been thinking about or you haven't. Excuse me. When you have it, let me know. Signal you're ready. Raise your hand so I can see them, that you have a goal. Okay. Thanks, Cody. Ayana is ready. Heather is ready. McKenna is ready. Howard, do you have a goal? Okay, good. I'm going to assume that the rest are ready. Now that you have identified your goal, right? Here we go. My reasons for wanting to change this behavior, whatever it is to achieve this goal, are, write down your reasons. 1, 2, 3 reasons. Why do you want to do it? Next is the challenges that I must deal with in changing this behavior are. 1 or 2 challenges, maybe. Next would be my strategies for dealing with those challenges are. For every challenge that you have put in, what is 1 or 2 strategies that you think you can have to deal with that challenge? My goal for next week with respect to this behavior is what? Now that you have what the behavior, what the challenge is, what are the ways you're going to tackle those challenges, what's your goal for next week? Where are you going to start? After you do that, now you've identified one goal that you're going to do. My readiness to change this behavior is, where are you? Okay, I've identified it, but I won't do it. I can't do it. I may do it. I will do it. And then I'm doing it and I'm still doing it. So of what you decided, which part of the first 4, or maybe you already are doing it, are you? You're going to ask, all right, do we have to do all this exercise every single time? It seems tedious. Initially, it might, but when it becomes second nature, I'm going to show you why doing this exercise what happens to you in your brain and the impact that it has. But hold that thought of its importance. It'll show up later. So you just went through a small exercise. That exercise helps you with resilience, and I'll explain. It helps you with your overall wellness. It gives you strategies for coping. And at the end, I will mention something about mindfulness. But let's walk through what you just did in a different lens. So we talk about resilience. You've heard people talk about resilience, and some people in medicine, they hate the word resilience because they say, physicians are resilient. If they were not resilient, they wouldn't be here in the first place. So stop talking about physician resilience, change the atmosphere. We know that's not what's going to happen. And so if you remember from the beginning of the presentation, I told you one of the quotes is, life does not get easier or more forgiving. We have to become more resilient, right? Here's why, and here's how we go about it and why it's important. So what is resilience? It is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. And resilience is the process of adapting, if you will. Whatever the challenge is, it's the process of adapting. So here's another test for you to test how resilient you are. It's the Nicholson-McBride Resilience Questionnaire. It's pretty simple. Maybe for the sake of time, you're going to have it on your presentation. You can go through it. It's a 12-question questionnaire, 5 points. When you're done answering, here's your grading system. And that'll give you a very rough estimate of how resilient you are. Some of you may score very high, some of you may score very low. Regardless, regardless of where you score, moving forward, let me show you how you can connect your resilience. Now, why am I talking about resilience? Because we know, you've seen, that the demands of our 21st century practice are so huge and they come at us for so many angles that we have to be resilient, we have to adapt, we have to thrive and survive and excel in this new environment. So we have to epitomize what resilience is really. And one of the first, so in understanding what resilience is and understanding its importance to thrive in this environment, some of the things that you guys can do to increase your resilience are simple things. One is connect with each other. I don't know how many work with each other or work with other people or even just your family. If you go back to one of the things about burnout, we start to become disconnected, disengaged, we push people aside, we become more isolated. That kills our resilience. One of the first things to combat burnout is to build that resilience and to connect. We need to be empathetically connected. I'm not just talking about with your patients. So one of the activities, if you find a group, you sit down 3 or 4 of them, each person describes their own resilience. And then each person describes one activity that helps their resilience. And you start sharing stories. Once you start sharing thoughts and experiences, something amazing happens. I may have to break this into the next sessions, but for the sake of it, let me try to do this with you. I think it's important. So for those of you who are interested, unmute yourself, and whoever is willing to join, it's a nice experience to go through. And I will ask each of you to describe what resilience means for them. I'll start with myself. I grew up in the Lebanese Civil War. I'm originally Lebanese. So from 1974 to 1990, all I knew was the Civil War. And I graduated from high school, it was 1989. In between, and I lived throughout that war. The last 2 or 3 years of schooling, one of the things that we had to do was we were trained to evade bullets, evade missiles, find out where the booby-trapped cars are, so on and so forth, so we are able to survive to get to school. And in my last year, we would take our exams, sometimes we had no power for months, we had no water for months, and so on. So kind of like last week, but think of it as a lifestyle, if you will. When we took our exams, we were in shelters, so we would have missiles hitting our building. You would have the ceiling fall, some stones fall on our test papers. We'd just clear off the test paper, continue taking the test, and then submit the test and move on. It became our sole focus to be resilient, to move forward, to change our environment, to change whatever we can to create our own path. And so I learned from that moment, this is what I have to do to survive. That's one of my resilience stories. I'm sure all of you have resilience stories, so I'd like to hear from someone else their resilience stories. Any volunteer? I'll call on people. I'm going to count to 5. None of you have a resilience story you want to share? Come on. Something you did or were proud to do or showed that you are resilient?
Sorry.
Yes.
I can't think of like a specific story, but I used to swim in high school. And so a lot of times when I'm like going through hard times, I think about swimming because I would be like very exhausted during the meet or practice. But it's one of those things where it's like, if I focus on the beat or kind of like the pattern of the sound of like my arms with the breathing, and I kind of just focus on the beat and keep my head down, then, the next thing you know, you're at the wall. So I kind of think about life situations like that when things are hard. I just think, all right, well, just like keep your head down and like focus on the beat, and it'll be over before you know it.
That's pretty amazing. Who else? Thank you, Ayana. Who else?
I can share. So I'm also from Turkey. So in order to come here, maybe you have friends from Lebanese or any international graduates. It's really hard to come here and compete with American medical grads. So I took my 2 years off, none paid, doing research, animal work, which I was scared of dogs, but I spent with my time full time with dogs. So anyway, although taking the exams and the anxiety of 2 years, if I match, I'll stay. If I don't, I go back to Turkey because literally I'm living on a budget and I have no money. So I happened to be one of the 8 matched into physical medicine and rehab when I matched. So that's why I always look at a positive way that, at least we're getting paid. So even COVID, you see a lot of people lost their job. Families are, losing their stability. People are breaking down, but at least physicians, okay, we are heroes. We are putting our lives in danger, but at the end of the day, we are still have a stable job and we are still, feeding our families. So that's always that toughness gave me that look.
Thank you. That's also a wonderful story. Who else? Yes, Howard.
Um, so I'm from the Caribbean. So to come over here, I had to do my USMLEs, and my sister was the one who was. She kind of really encouraged me. I remember even the first test that I did, I was really nervous for step 1. I almost didn't go to the center. I did pretty good, but it was stressful. So when I came over here and I was doing my internal medicine residency, she was the one that would she would help me a lot, to get settled, get an apartment, and she would ask me how I was doing, and we keep in touch. So she had like Hodgkin's lymphoma, and in the last year of my residence, she died. And sorry. I only could like take a couple of days off, but I had to, continue and finish my program, and I had to apply for fellowships. But what really kept me going was that she was always encouraging me to do as much as I could, and my faith also helped a lot, because I didn't really have any time to really stop. There's no time to stop, to take time, to take months, just to grieve, to move on. You just have to keep going. And I mean, it's made me stronger, but it takes time.
Wow. Howard, thanks. I'm sorry. And thanks, really, thank you for sharing. I would ask of you all to kind of, for all of you who didn't give their story, what did you feel when you heard the stories? Share with me your thoughts about what you felt when you heard other people talk about their trials, their tribulations, their strength. What did you feel? I mean, how many of you did not connect with Howard? We all did. We all felt his pain. And we all sunk with him. But at the end of this, give me something, 1 or 2 words that how you feel after just 3 people talked. Cody, 1 word, 2 words.
I feel amazed by some of the struggles that people are forced to endure, and can still come out, head high and moving forward and doing well.
Thanks. Heather?
I was going to say, I just feel privileged because I think a lot of times I take things for granted. I think my struggles are my own. And then you hear from other people who've gone through either, not to say that anyone's struggle is better or worse or anything, but it definitely puts it into perspective that everyone was going through things. And you never know who, say you're coworker is happy-go-lucky, but you really don't know what's going on like inside or at home or anything else. And I think it just encourages us all to give each other more grace.
Wonderful. Yes. McKenna?
I definitely feel a sense of compassion, and also a bit more connected.
Alexander?
I would say that I feel hopeful. I know that's maybe weird to say, but like, even though we all go through hard times, there's uh, like light at the end of the tunnel that, you know, our lives aren't over when bad things happen. So we can hold on to that hope that things will get better, and we'll be better when we come out on the other side of it.
Ayana's reaching to the wall while swimming. Same thing, huh? Kimberly? Thank you, Alexander.
Echo the sentiment of feeling connected. I think we can all relate in that we've had this, you know, like as Evelyn said, there are our own struggles. We don't necessarily share them, but we're all more alike than we are different. Feel humbled.
Okay. Louis?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I guess very sympathetic towards what everyone's going through. I mean, I definitely had my resilience stories too, but I wasn't gonna follow that. But I feel like what reminds me is kind of close to what how I tell people about COVID and my experiences with COVID a year ago. Just that, well, I asked people who I haven't seen in a while. I was like, "Oh, have you had COVID yet?" And I say "yet" because I'm probably gonna get it, even though despite whatever you're saying on. And so just like that, to the other things that I'm hearing is you haven't had that kind of struggle yet. You're gonna have it later on. It's just a matter of time before somebody close to you passes away or some kind of financial dilemma or something happens. So it's like upon hearing that, I say listen now, and I'll probably be next, or somebody will be next. So it's just gotta sympathize with others.
Thanks. Karen?
I feel really inspired hearing about the challenges that people have faced. Like everyone is saying, we've all had kind of difficult times. For me, it was kind of like on the front end, starting first year. But when you look back, you realize that you're stronger than you previously gave yourself credit for. And Howard, thank you so much, everybody, for sharing. But it's just a really powerful story. And I appreciate everyone being open and sharing.
Thanks, Karen. Nick?
Yeah, I pretty much just would repeat what everyone else is saying. It's all very inspiring, humbling, encouraging, and motivating. We all have our own struggles. Some definitely much more objectively serious than others, but yeah, it is still something that everybody goes through.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Isabella?
Yeah, I just echo what everyone said. I feel really connected to the stories, and being in other people's vulnerability, I think it frees me up to acknowledge any hardships that I'm facing, and to know that it's okay, and that we're all human, and we're all working through things, and we can still continue on. So in that way, yeah, it's like liberating, as well as a lot of connectedness.
Thank you, Isabella. Beautifully said. Stacy?
She said that her audio is not working.
Okay. All right. Oh, there she is. You're typing. Good. Yeah. We'll see the chat. Thank you. And take your time. I'm going to read it. I appreciate Howard being so open, as that was such a hard thing to share. It made my heart skip a beat, and it made me feel closer to him, just because we can all know that we each have our hard times but are able to overcome them in time. I'm also Caribbean grad, so I understand those feelings of hopelessness that can occur, and how important it is to have a person that cheers you on during those times. Thank you. Thank you all. It requires strength and courage to do what you just did. And in thinking back, you would think, well, that was really not as hard as I thought it would be. And actually, I enjoyed it because it is enjoyable. Your brain thanks you for it. But that's the power of connection. And if you think that our 5 minutes together or 10 minutes together of sharing these stories, if you go back and say, wow, that was just a profound impact on me today. It really took 5 or 10 minutes to share something with a colleague. You can only imagine what would happen to you if you do it on a daily basis. And that's what I encourage you to do, because the change in your brain is real. We say it's in your heart, but it's actually in your brain, and you'll see what I mean. But thank you all. It's wonderful. It's always uplifting to hear people's stories and to put it into perspective. I think it's a great push forward for every one of us. Another exercise. So this one was the connectivity. This one is connection to purpose. When you look up in the heavens and say, why am I doing this again? When you are not wondering about the state of life, when you are in a happy place, if you will, write down the answers to these questions. Why are you a healthcare provider? Why did you become a physician? What gives you the greatest pleasure in your work? Write these things down. Identifying them does two things. One, it objectifies them. Two, it makes you look for them. Part of resilience. What describes success at work for you? Every one of us is different, but what does it look like for you? Instead of aiming or wandering aimlessly during your day just to fill out tasks, if you are able to start the day by saying, I need to go that direction, you'll be amazed what happened. What boosts you most at work? Find out, seek it. Active well-being. And what helps you to fulfill your purpose? It isn't just about things you do. It could be your family, your friends, the curriculum, colleagues, this professor, somebody. Now comes the third exercise, which I believe is a very important, very powerful exercise. You've heard about the Serenity Prayer. If you have not, excuse me, I'll read it. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Makes sense, right? Stephen Covey, again, in 1989, he published a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And in that, he describes 2 big circles, the circle of concern and the circle of influence. And we added the circle of focus. Well, what does that mean? Resilience, building resilience is an act of building success. If you find success in a task, you are rewarded, you build a connection in your brain that connects to resilience. Now, how many of you worry about things you have no control over? COVID, elections, atmosphere, ice, all of these things. We have no, yet some of us beat ourselves to death because of it. Okay. So one of the things, if you have a white paper, write down all your concerns, everything that concerns you, from your shoelace to global warming. When you are done, identify the things that you, no matter how much you scream, kick, yell, do, you have no control over. Put them in the circle of concern. And once you've identified the things that are in the circle of concerns, forget about them. Now take everything that you have some semblance of control over and put them in the circle of influence. What you have identified now, what you have done now, is you have separated problems that will lead you to being deflated because you can't do anything about them, and then problems that you have a chance of impacting and that can give you successes and increase your resilience. Now, once you've identified the circle of influence, pick one thing, put it in the circle of focus on it, do something about it, reach the goal, remove it, grab the other one, and keep on doing it. And you'll notice there's a theme in my conversation is that it's one thing at a time, one goal at a time, one sequence at a time. Why? Because our brain works better in a sequential manner, not a parallel manner. Multitasking is not something that our brain likes to do. It does it. But when it does, you notice that the amount of attention paid to something decreases. That's why I told you, don't talk on the phone and drive. It decreases your attention span by 50%. If you're doing something on the laptop or if you're answering an email and somebody's talking to you, they'll say, you're not listening to me. Yes, I am. What did I just say? Hold on one second. Our brain doesn't function that way. So the likelihood of us completing a task and succeeding works best if it's one focus at a time. And if successes breed resilience, then chances are you're going to say, all right, here, one task done, one task done. This is a tremendous resilience exercise. And if you practice it, you look at something, evaluate, isolate, triage it. Global warming, I don't have 10 million cows and I'm not running a Hummer, so I'm fine. I can't do anything with it. I'll move on. It's there. I'll listen to what people can do. And if you go back to the first slide or some of the first slides where I told you 80% of things are outside the control of the physician. When you start hearing people complain about the government and Medicare and HMS and so on and so forth, you get irritated, but at the same time, what is it that you can do? And then you start seeing people just focused on things that they, yelling at EMSs for bringing in patients, getting frustrated because we're getting 10 ambulances. What good will it do? Nothing, but it draws your energy from doing something to being in the negative. All of these things, once you start changing in your brain, you'll see the outcome after I'm done with all of this, what's going to happen. Bear with me, it's a process. So when we talk about wellness, remember I said resilience, wellness, mindfulness we're going to talk about. So when we talk about wellness, health is a state of mind, wellness is a state of being. I want to live healthy, I am healthy. It's a state of being. Circumstances do not determine state of being. State of being determines circumstances. Again, common theme, life is not what happens to you, life is what I make happen. If you don't have time, change the priority, find the time. All of these things are subtle hammering into your brain to take control, as opposed to saying, I can't do anything. So some wellness activities for you. 1, write down 5 inexpensive self-care activities. Write them down, okay? We're not going to do it now, but write them down. Write down 5 activities that require planning and money, like vacation, weekend getaway, going fishing, going to the movies, which, all of a sudden now seems dangerous, but decide how you can fit at least 1 activity per week into your schedule. The wellness activity time is sacred, right? Once you fit it into your schedule, do it every week. The ideal situation is to have 1 inexpensive activity and 1 planned activity per week. That's ideal. I don't expect it to start. The amount of change is going to happen in your life. Some of you might be lucky enough to say, I can do it all in 1 week, and it's going to take me 2 months to get things straightened out. That's fine. It is an active role of living well. Another activity is the wheel of wellness. Remember, I talked about wellness being 6 or 7 dimensions, depending on which one. So this is a very nice exercise also for you. There are 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 dimensions of wellness. From a scale of 0 to 10, take the first quadrant or the first part, healthy finances. Where do you rank your finances? 0 being in the center, 10 being on the circumference. Ideally, we want everybody to be 10, so you end up having a wheel that rolls wonderfully in your life. But most of us have a jaggedy kind of thing. We have a 5 here and a 4 here and a 6 here. So we get a wheel that looks like this and it goes tuck, 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 and just stumbles. It's very hard to push. Take a moment and figure out where you're healthy, how healthy are your finances? How healthy is your environment? What do you mean environment? I just got over ice. That's not the environment I'm talking about. Environment is your professional and personal environment. How healthy is it? You've got an office space, for example, right? Is it conducive to, do you like when you enter your office space? I'll give you a small example. Or you feel cluttered? If you do, then it's something affecting you. That's an environment thing, you can change it. Healthy self-care, where would you rank it now that you know what self-care means? Healthy relationships, healthy thoughts. What do you mean by healthy thoughts? Well, I can either stay in the negative or stay in the positive. There are many books out there that can tell you and teach you and show you what are your thoughts and how thoughts determine behavior and so on and so forth. Overall, are you optimistic? Are you pessimistic? Do you come down hard on yourself? And then healthy time. Where would you rank yourself? And after you're done with all of this, and this will take a minute to do, and the longer you are spend time, the better the results. So you have to be emotionally honest, integrity, and do this. And then when you do, take one part. All right, here we go again. Identify one part. So identify one activity that you can do to improve your score along each realm. One activity. Set a plan of action to achieve that activity, complete the activity, move on to the next activity. You will succeed and become more resilient. Another wellness activity for you to practice is personal standards. And that's something that you hold yourself to. If you don't know what your personal standards are, you're operating in the blind. Write them down. A lot of self-discovery in this, right? And then personal boundaries. Personal boundaries are things you hold others to. So how many of you would let a perfect stranger come and kiss you on your cheek? You know, I'd karate chop you the next week. Excuse me, what are you doing? Or hug you. Hey, and no, weird, right? So how many of you would let others come into your personal space here while you're at work all the time? So what do you mean personal? I have no personal space. I'm an intern, I'm a resident, I'm a new fresh physician, I'm a medical student. I'm in ER, everybody's in my face. I've got nothing. Right? So have you defined your personal space? What is acceptable for you? What isn't? If you haven't, why don't you make your personal boundaries known to yourself first? Because these are the things that you're going to hold others to. They're imaginary lines. They can't see them unless you announce them. I'll give you an example. You know, I work in the ER. Great. I do not allow anybody to cuss in front of me. I will jump on people's throats if they do. If people come to me and they start to cuss at any one shape or form, they will be met with extreme resistance from me. So they have understood, and it's a personal boundary I have, because I just don't believe that this is the right place or time to do so. Another personal boundary is when I'm eating. Everybody knows who works with me, I need 10 minutes to gobble down food, or maybe 7. While I'm eating, do not bother me or disturb me unless it's a life-threatening emergency. Like if somebody's coding, fine. If you have an EKG that I have to sign, fine. Otherwise, it will wait. And for those who, and it's not because people intend to do it, it's because they don't know. So if they say, hey, doc, can you do this? Let me finish my lunch, then come back. They'll learn, they're fine. I create this personal boundary. I'm living in a space now that allows me to heal, that gives me time, that gives me quiet, calmness. And that's what I can ask people to do. But I know what works for me. You have to identify what works for you and then enforce it. Some of these examples are others may not yell at me, others may not speak to me rudely, others may not enter my office without knocking, others may not call me at home to discuss office matters, others may not gossip in my presence. Oh, that's one of my pet peeves, and people will sway away from me if they want to talk about anybody or anything. Inform others. That's the first thing you say. Hey, you know, I realize you did this, but next time, because I'm here, I would appreciate it if you don't just go yell at me. Yeah, don't do that. No, you just inform people. Make a request, then give a warning, and follow through with the stated consequences and let go of the outcome. Whatever happens, it happened. Now move on. These do something again to your brain that is tremendous. It actually relaxes your brain. You don't have to take on everything. Now, I guess the next part would be some of your ideas that we can go with of some of the things that you can do before work or school, whichever, that help you cope and feel good before you go to work. Some of the things that you might do that might help make you help your self-care and make you feel well before you go to work. And so maybe I'll stop here because it's 2 o'clock, and we'll continue on Friday. So let me stop sharing. And thankfully, I was able to record this time. The next time we'll go over some of these things. You'll share with me some of the things you do that will help you increase your resilience, increase your self-care, your wellness, and put you in a good mood and set your boundaries and everything we've talked about. Okay? Any questions so far? Comments? Do you like how it's going? If you don't, do you want things changed, just tell me. Right now is say your piece or forever be quiet. Okay. Okay, great. Thanks, Cody. All right. We will continue on Friday, same format. See you then at 9 o'clock. I'll send out the Zoom invite at some point. There's more chats. So let me just quickly see. We can go on if you want. I don't mean to have it as a cliffhanger, but I have to go to work, and I know you guys are done with it. But hey, I love the suspense. We'll keep it. Tell others, bring them over. Let's see. All right. Take care all. See you on Friday. Thank you. Bye.